The night Willow Creek almost froze over was the night Emily Hart unknowingly stepped into destiny. Snow had started falling hours earlier. Not the playful kind that children loved, but sharp, biting flakes that stung the skin and silenced the town. The streets looked beautiful from afar, but they were cruel up close. People hurried, heads down, collars up, hearts locked. Emily walked alone. Her backpack was heavier than usual, stuffed with textbooks and a leftover sandwich she planned to split with her mother. Her body ached from standing all day at the diner, scrubbing plates that belonged to people who would never notice her name. She didn't mind. Emily had learned early that life didn't promise fairness. It only tested character. Her father, once a cheerful factory worker, had died in an accident when a machine failed and crushed his spine. The company paid condolences, not justice. Her mother aged 10 years in a single season. Emily aged even faster. Since then, Emily had learned to survive quietly. As she turned onto Maple Street, something unusual slowed her steps. At the edge of the road stood an elderly woman, dangerously close to traffic. She looked lost. No, not just lost, afraid. Her posture was stiff, her breathing uneven, and her eyes scanned the street as if searching for something that refused to appear. Cars passed. One honked. Another swerved slightly. Annoyed, N01 stopped. Emily hesitated. She had been warned her whole life. Don't talk to strangers. Don't stop. Don't get involved. But then she noticed the woman's hands, thin, shaking violently in the cold. Emily crossed the street. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said gently, keeping her distance. "Are you all right?" The woman flinched, then looked at Emily as if she were a lifeline thrown into deep water. I don't know where I am," she whispered. "My driver stepped away, and then everything went confusing." Her voice cracked. Tears welled up but didn't fall, like pride was holding them back. Emily glanced around. No car waiting. No one approaching. "What's your name?" Emily asked. "Margaret," the woman replied after a pause. "Margaret Witt." She stopped herself, shaking her head. "I'm sorry. I can't think clearly." Emily didn't recognize the name. She didn't care. She noticed the woman's coat was elegant, but thin. Stylish, but useless against the cold. Without thinking, Emily removed her own scarf. It wasn't new. It had holes near the edges. But it was warm. She wrapped it around Margaret's neck. Margaret gasped softly. "Oh no, dear. You'll freeze." Emily smiled. "I've walked colder nights than this." She helped Margaret sit at the bus stop bench. Picked up the purse that had fallen, carefully returning each item. Lipstick, a folded photograph of a young boy holding a graduation cap, a silver pin engraved with initials. Minutes passed. Then moored up. Margaret's confusion came in waves. Sometimes she spoke clearly about meetings, investments, travels across Europe. Other times she seemed frightened, clutching Emily's sleeve like a child. Emily stayed. She missed her bus. She spent her last money on hot soup and tea. She ignored the growing numbness in her fingers. Across the street, behind tinted windows, Daniel Whitmore sat frozen, not from cold, but from shocked. He had been on the phone with police, security, medical teams, anyone who could help find his mother. Margaret Whitmore was not just elderly. She was powerful, influential, wealthy, and increasingly fragile. Daniel had grown up surrounded by money but starved of peace. His mother had built an empire after his father's death, becoming harder, sharper, more guarded. But tonight, she had slipped away from a charity gala, refusing security, insisting she needed air. Now Daniel watched a poorly dressed teenage girl kneel beside his mother, warming her hands, listening like nothing else mattered. No cameras, no audience, just humanity. When Margaret finally recognized the black SUV, relief flooded her face. "That's my son," she whispered. Daniel ran. He held his mother tightly, shaking with relief, then turned to Emily. "You stayed," he said, searching her face. "You didn't call anyone. You didn't leave." Emily shrugged, embarrassed. She needed someone. Daniel wanted to ask her name, her story, everything, but Emily was already stepping away. She didn't ask who they were. She didn't wait for thanks. She walked home through the snow, unaware that she had just walked out of a millionaire's life and straight into her future. 3 days later, Emily's house had peeling paint, a leaking roof, and a heater that worked only when it felt generous. When the black cars arrived, the neighbors whispered. Emily panicked. Daniel stepped out slowly, holding a folder. Not money, not contracts, but answers. My mother hasn't stopped talking about you, he said. She said you treated her like a person, not a problem. Margaret followed, her posture stronger now. You reminded me, she said softly, of who I used to be, before wealth taught me distance. Emily opened the folder with trembling hands. That a scholarship, health care for her mother, housing repairs, that a future. Emily's knees nearly gave out. I didn't help her for this, she whispered. Margaret smiled through tears. And that is why we chose you. That night, Emily cried, not because she was saved, but because kindness still mattered in a world that had tried to convince her it didn't. And in the silence of Willow Creek, a simple truth settled into the snow. Sometimes, the greatest rewards come not from chasing opportunity, but from stopping when someone needs you.